Welcome to the Standard H podcast, a casual conversation about the lives of entrepreneurs and those growing companies. I can't thank you enough for listening, as these episodes have been a wonderful supplement to the line of apparel that I'm thrilled to share is steadily growing. If you like what you hear, please visit standard-h.com and sign up for our email list. The website not only hosts every episode of this show, but also allows you to explore the entire product assortment and our latest travel recommendations. As an email subscriber, you will be the first to receive product release information as well as receive offers no one else is privy to. Just visit standard-h.com for more information. Seeing Standard H worn by a growing number of watch enthusiasts has been incredibly cool to witness, so chances are good if you're listening to this, you're probably an enthusiast already. However, if not, it makes no difference, as Passion Fine Jewelry welcomes everyone into their shop in Solana Beach, California. If you're already in deep, you'll know some of the brands that Tim Jackson and his team carry, which are some of the most highly sought-after independent watch manufacturers sold today. Names like Roger Smith, Grunfeld, Kudoke, Habring, Sarpaneva, and many more. If you can't make it to California, visit passionfinejewelry.com for their entire offering online. This episode is also brought to you by Cantonment. Cantonment's flagship product, the kerchief, is a perfect medium between a handkerchief and a bandana. Featuring iconic designs such as the Fender Stratocaster and the dashboard of a Volkswagen GTI, these utilitarian cloths are an item that should be a mainstay in your everyday carry. Tuck one in a back pocket or use one as a neckerchief. Visit them at cantonment.co, that's cantonment.co, and use the code STANDARDH in all caps, no spaces, for 20% off everything in their online shop. Now let's get to the show. The story of George Esquivel feels like it could be a movie script. From an uneasy childhood kicking his dad out of the house to starting his own shoe business, the successes and the pitfalls. Most pitfalls were mere bumps in the road due to things outside of George's control, such as investors backing out and the effects of COVID, for example. It's been a roller coaster, and it's all worthy of the big screen, in my opinion. I first came across George's work in and around 2009, 2010 when I was writing my lifestyle blog, Screaming Mouth. I'd seen him in some magazines as well as some stores around Los Angeles where I was living at the time. Though I wanted to interview him back then, the timing never worked out. Funny enough, while I was in Chicago at Windup, the brand Esquivel came up in conversation with George from Everest Straps. As fate and sheer coincidence would have it, 2 days later I received an email from Esquivel's marketing department about perhaps being a candidate for a podcast interview. Little did they know my awareness of the brand from 10 years before. It's so crazy how the world shrinks sometimes. I can't believe it's been a decade since I first learned about Esquivel, which is also a testament to George's staying power. I just love his aesthetic and unique style of his product assortment, which I feel he does a great job describing even without a visual component of this show. So if you're into shoes and or want to learn more about how they're made, etc., this show's for you. So rather than summarize this conversation too much, I figured it's best to just jump in because George has had one hell of a ride. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard H podcast. George, thanks so much for taking the time and having me here at your studio. It's a really special place. It's in downtown LA. Yep. But it's a warehouse with kind of a loft kind of space to it, which is where we are.
Yep.
What is this room?
So this is my design room.
Okay, I was going to say, because there's like some storyboarding going on.
This is where, like, the project we did for the Beverly Hills Hotel. I'm working on another project for an airline company where it's an amenity kit.
Cool.
Bowling shoes for the Roosevelt Hotel.
Amazing.
Spare room. New sneakers for the Beverly Hills Hotel. And these are some other projects for me. I also, part of what we do here at Esquivel House is develop product for other brands. So if you notice, those are some interesting looking boots. It's the whole concept is the barefoot shoe, right? The gentleman that I'm working with is Chris Duffin. He holds a world record. You should look him up for 1,000-pound deadlift and 1,000-pound squat.
Okay.
Yeah. So the concept is everything's flat. And he came to me along with his partners, and we just started developing these shoes, and it's a whole lifestyle. So a workout shoe, a casual loafer, an outdoor boot that you see there. And they look very simple, but there's a lot of interesting things that we have to take into account when we develop these things.
Right.
These guys are massive guys.
Yeah.
He's massive, and these guys are just huge, and developing the density of the rubber so it doesn't break down too soon. And these guys are working out with 500 pounds, 600 pounds, and it's kind of crazy.
So is the boot physically that I'm looking at here, is that the physical representation of that image?
It is. It's not the final that's going to go into production.
Okay.
But
Because the image looks like if you were to take an UGG boot but make it look like a Wolverine 1,000-mile boot, like it looks like
it's
this.
a whole, well, everything started with, let's just say this is where it started, right? That's the shoe.
Yeah.
From the shoe, then we went to a loafer with a collapsible heel.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, we're developing other products. So then it goes into this. And everything has to do with a foot splay.
Right.
But then what happens is as the leather gets thicker, it doesn't flex the same.
Right, sure.
So now you got to start developing all of these other products or components that work with it. How is it going to continue to flex?
Yeah.
So these guys here really don't have an alternative. If you're an outdoor guy, if you're a construction worker, what
Right.
do you wear to give you that flexibility in the foot splay?
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So that's part of what we do in this room.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Conceptualize, create.
You also see this woman, there's that high heel there that I'm doing for somebody. She wanted custom heels. She's got a smaller foot and she's in between sizes and she can afford anything she wants.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make her a custom heel. That's kind of what we do here as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. A lot of different projects. Our brand is still small compared to like big brands, but these are kind of the projects that we take on with my business partners. And I think also utilizing all the relationships that I've built over the years.
Sure.
Of sourcing and manufacturing.
So you and I sort of have not a unique history because we don't have a history.
Yeah. Well, our paths have crossed.
Yes. So I used to write a fashion and lifestyle blog, which all my listeners should probably know this well by now. I had, I don't know, probably maybe 2 posts on Esquivel shoes back in the day. Now we're going back 10, 12 years. So we've exchanged emails.
Yeah.
But we've never met in person until 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
which is great. And you have certainly moved your business into a different realm because back when I was covering you, you were on West 3rd Street.
In a little showroom.
In a little showroom. And it was kind of not an... Would you consider it not an alleyway?
It was behind Douglas
It was behind Douglas Fir.
Which was, and still is, a very cool men's store.
Love it, yeah.
So...
The owner's name is...
John Noble.
And I've asked him to be on the show, and he doesn't want to come on.
Oh, really? He doesn't want...
Yeah.
I mean, it's just... He's a very interesting guy, super cool.
He's a humbled guy.
And just a really, really good guy. So behind Douglas Fir, there was an apartment. It was a 1-bedroom apartment that was 2 stories, full kitchen, full everything. And as my relationship grew with John, I said, where do you guys go when you guys walk out to the back? He's like, oh, it's our storage. And I walked back there, and they were using an apartment, this insane apartment with this beautiful courtyard. Did you ever see the courtyard back there? It looked like a little French courtyard.
Only through the doorway.
And I was like, I need this place to be mine.
Right.
And I said, John, what if I rent this? And he goes, well, I sub it from the landlord. I said, I want it. And he goes, well, can I keep part of it as storage? I'm like, you can do whatever you want. And it was really cool. We were there for about 10 years. And that's kind of where we were meeting the celebrities and the stylists and the musicians would come to town. And it was also part of when I went through the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund, it was a good little hub, right? Had its time. Landlord wanted the building back. And we were without an LA presence for about 4 years.
Oh, really?
But at that time, I had been developing in my mind what I want the next phase to be. And the next phase to be was what you see here downstairs, where we call it Esquivel House, right? You can come here, you saw a dining room table, you can have a glass of champagne or a beer or a Coke or whatever and watch the guys work. the guys and girls, which is super cool to me.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of craft.
Sure.
Like chandeliers were made for us, the dining room table, the couch we bought and hand colored. Everything has a story downstairs. The products that we make, even down to the collaborations that we have with other people. The candle, it's a house scent. And a good friend of mine, now we've become good friends. He was the one who developed the scent for Hotel Cost and Colette.
Cool.
So he developed Esquivel House scent, which is really, really cool. It's still not quite what we want it to be. We had hoped that it was more, the entrance looks a little sparse. We want it to be more retail, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
We started building early 2019, and halfway through it, the investor pulled out. Had to find another investor. We get that investor at the end of 2019, and then the pandemic hits, and now we can't do construction. I mean, it was just a year and a half of just craziness. We move in June 2020, the middle of the pandemic, and we have no option. Like, this is it. We're moving in. It's not like we're not going to move in. And it's like everything else. It's been up and down. We've had amazing months. We've had months where like, what the heck are we doing?
Right.
We've had weeks where like, I can't believe this happened. And then you have weeks like you don't see anything because it's just been whatever's happening in the news is reflected in our business, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to go out because it's, there's a high rate of infection right now or whatever's happening. Before we moved in, the street was packed. Across the street from us is Warner Music. Nobody fully moved in there.
Wow.
Someone told me that the number is about 500-600 people that are supposed to be moving in there. No one ever moved in.
Wow.
It's empty. My thinking when we first moved in was like, this is going to be cool. You're going to have all those people, my clients who actually are with Warner Music, to come and meet their publicists there or whatever happens, can just walk across the street and we do the shoes.
So we'll obviously jump around here a lot. Who is your client?
I mean, everybody says the same thing. It's someone creative. It's someone, they're independent. And to be honest with you, it really is our client. Yeah. Our clients, for the most part, I think on the women's sector, it's creatives, architects, designers, doctors, and it kind of marries that on the men's side. It's guys that have built their own businesses, guys that don't really care what anybody else is wearing. Yes, they do love a good watch and they love a good car, but when it comes to their clothing, they're a little bit more expressive, I think, in what they buy, right?
Sure.
They don't want what anybody else has. The guys that come here don't want anybody to have their boot or their belt or their bag, whatever that is, right, that we make for them. Like I showed you one of the boots downstairs, that navy blue suede that's a replica of another boot, of his favorite boot. He's going to buy 4 pairs probably. But that's what these gentlemen want. I would say our age group starts probably late 20s, early 30s, closer to mid 30s.
Sure. And
it goes up to probably 55, 60. The way things are now is the guys are staying in better shape for a lot longer. They love clothes and they love to travel. I mean, this is all pre-pandemic, right? But that's kind of our guy. Guys love cars. They love motorcycles. We work with some amazing people. Jonathan Ward of Icon Trucks is a client of ours.
He's been on the podcast.
Yeah. We also have Road Scholars. Those guys.
In Durham.
Yeah.
I'm from North Carolina.
Okay, yeah.
So I know Cam.
Yeah, Cam's a client of ours and a friend.
That's crazy.
So those are our type of people, right? So Jonathan Ward. Then you also have...
I mean, I don't know Cam, but I've met him.
He's a great guy.
And he signed my book and
super good
did
guy.
the whole deal.
So then you have that, and then you have also the McKennas that own the McKenna car dealerships.
Yeah.
From the father, wife, kids, future son-in-law, they were in my shoes, right? This morning we had Patrick Durkin, who's an ex-UFC fighter. He's a client of ours. It just kind of, I think when you want something a little different and special, right?
Right. So what makes you different and special in your eyes? Like, and was that the intention in the onset, or did it become that?
I don't think it was ever about being different. I grew up, I have a crazy upbringing, grew up poor, homeless at times. My dad was a drug addict, drug dealer. At 19, I kicked him out of the house. But one of the things that I never had was new shoes. I always had fake Nikes or fake Reeboks. And when we were first making shoes, I wanted everything to be perfect because in my mind, a perfect shoe was a perfect white sneaker, right?
Right.
Little did I know until one of my shoemakers pulled me aside, and I had never even thought of this. He's like, you do know that that's not the best leather. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, that's painted. And I'm like, what the heck? And we're making them out of a garage. And it started me kind of going down this path of this perfectly imperfect product that we make, right?
Sure.
We don't want to cover the veins in the leather, but it is a way you make it. I mean, you've seen the process. It's still a beautiful process, right? We're not about mass market. We are about individuality. Even the watch straps, something a little different, right? There's a reason why I think people want to write about what we're trying to do. I'm not trying to sell 100,000 pairs out of my space here.
Right.
That's not the goal.
Right.
The goal is to do beautiful things. I think if I was younger and I was at this stage, I'd probably want to sell 100,000 pairs.
Right.
But now, understanding how difficult it is to make that many shoes in my own space, this is a workshop. It's a beautiful atelier. People say it's your factory. I'm like, believe me, it's not a factory. Because a factory, as you and I talked about the wallet, we would be die cutting everything. You'd be prefabricating. There's
probably conveyor belts involved.
Well, so a lot of people don't understand when you're production of shoes, doesn't matter what shoe you are. You can't make a shoe without a last, which is the mold, right?
Right.
If you're making a 100,000 pair run, you don't have 100,000 pairs of shoe last. You may have 5,000 pairs, maybe 10,000 pairs. You need to use that last multiple times. So you have to hurry up, get it out of the shoe, and last or mount another pair. So in factories, they'll run through heaters and coolers to hurry up and get it out. It's only going to stay on the last maybe 2 days. It might sit longer if they're waiting for something. Typically, factories at the most 5 days. Ours sit anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks on the last, naturally dry.
Interesting.
It's a natural dry process because we don't run them through heaters and coolers. Now, if somebody needs a pair of shoes in 5 days and it's for whether it's a TV show or a special project or a premiere, we'll rush it. But they understand that this is not a shoe that I'm going to stand behind and say, by the way, you can bring this back to me and it's still going to be in good condition as long as you've taken care of it years down the road. Because it didn't dry properly, in my opinion, right? We know what works for us, right?
It's like beef. Like you're like dry aging beef.
Well, a little bit, but it's dry. It's drying the shoes. During the winter when it's colder, it takes longer to dry. And it just so happens we're in Southern California and it's warm and if it's the proper temperature. I don't know specifically or scientifically why. I just know that it works.
So did you grow up in LA?
I grew up in LA and Orange County.
Okay.
So I started school in LA and then I finished and I graduated high school in Orange County. And we went back and forth. I went to 12 or 13 schools. Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you attend college or no?
I did. I tried a couple times. So at 19, I kicked my dad out of the house and became head of the household. So I'm the oldest of 5.
Wow.
When I kicked my dad out, I had 2 siblings in high school, another one in 6th grade, and the youngest was in kindergarten. So it's just now
you became a dad real quick.
Kind of like really, really fast.
Yeah.
And the way I got into this is my escape with you met my wife, who was we met in high school. My escape was going to concerts, the punk shows of the 90s.
What bands?
Social Distortion, Rancid.
Does Mike Ness wear your stuff?
No,
because he's an Alan Edmonds guy.
Yeah, and he actually wears like these vintage cop shoes. I never made shoes for Mike Ness.
Okay.
I made shoes for Dennis Donnell, who was his guitar player, and John Maurer, who was the bass player.
Okay.
And I actually became friends with those guys back then. And
that's cool.
But never Mike Ness. It's one of those things where it's not like I have to have the guy, right? For me, right. And then
you want the person interested.
I want the person who likes what I'm doing because they're going to promote it. They're gonna promote what I'm doing, and so that was kind of like the first band. I'm like, wow, I was paying $40-$50 to go see these guys, and now they're wearing my shoes.
Now they're rocking your stuff.
And then it took off from there because being at the right place at the right time. Then the guitar tech for No Doubt became a friend.
Cool.
He puts it on No Doubt right before they got big, and then the band Lit,
yeah,
those guys, and then the Reverend Horton Heat, and it just kind of all took off at the same time. Like I would say 96 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001 is just when it took off.
Wow.
And we were still making shoes out of our garage.
And that was in Orange County?
No, that was in the city of Commerce.
Okay.
I found someone to make my shoes out of his garage. He was a retired shoemaker. In 2.5 years, I say we probably made 2,500 pairs of shoes out of a garage.
So what was that aesthetic? What did it look like?
It was very vintage. It was just a vintage aesthetic. I knew nothing about design. It was like a wingtip, a cap toe, and a derby, and a loafer. And it's the whole rockabilly punk thing that was happening.
Yeah.
So Creepers, Doc Martens, and I was there. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And that's where it all, I guess, the love of not having shoes, and then I have shoes, turned into like an addiction.
Sure.
Then I started, how do I get better at this? And taking, the gentleman who was making my shoes quit on me because he was only part-time. I go find somebody else, and everybody kept kicking me out of their space. And I find out that I'm just kind of neurotic and a pain in the ass. Like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough.
I'm the same way, man.
And to the people, to the point where, like, we can't do what you're asking. You need to leave. I'm like, no, come on, let's do it again. And I'd show up with a wad of cash. Well, I got 50 pairs. Here's the money for 50 pairs. You want the money? And of course, they're going to take the money.
Right.
So we would keep working together until finally my last mentor said, you're driving everybody crazy. We can't make you what you want. Here's a couple of machines. Have fun. Here's what's crazy. I had just gotten my first luxury account, which was Fred Siegel Feet on Melrose.
No kidding.
I had just gotten it. I'm like, what the heck am I going to do?
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to make shoes in that way. Like, I understood the process and I helped. I never wanted to learn to make shoes to become a great shoemaker. My thing is I want to know how things are how they're made. So you can't tell me no, because it took about 1.5 years from the first pair I had made in Mexico until I found someone, because everybody said, oh, I can't do what you're asking. I'm like, how? It's just a shoe. It's not that hard.
Right.
And I had been dabbling in clothing. So I understood it's not that hard. And my whole goal of learning how to make shoes and helping and assisting was, I understand.
Right.
I understand the mechanics of the foot. I understand how it's supposed to fit. I understand all of those things. Doesn't mean I'm the best shoemaker. I don't need to be. I don't want to be the best shoemaker.
Right.
I got an amazing team downstairs, right? And what is the best anyways? You know, I have clients who buy a welted, beautiful British-made shoe, and they're like, I can't wear them. They're too stiff.
Well, that's just it, right? Like, I mean, being really specific to you, like I'm this way with my apparel. You know, like, this isn't good enough. This fabric isn't soft enough. This fabric's too thin. It's too thick. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'm trying to accomplish, even though I'm not physically manning the sewing machine. You know,
I don't want to sit there. Like, there's no way. What takes my guys one day to do would take me 2 weeks.
Right.
I can do it.
Right.
And I can sit there. The only thing I can't do is stitch. I was always scared to stitch because once you puncture the leather, the needle marks are there. I was always scared to ruin the leather. But all the other parts, like, yeah, I can make a shoelace. It's going to take a long time. The stitching's not so straight because I don't practice that every day. My job is to be designing the product, being the face of the brand, being the creative director, and hanging out with the clients who come by. That's kind of my thing.
Sure.
You know, for me to sit and cut, I can't cut as fast as these guys.
Right.
I can't do
It's just inefficient.
It's inefficiency. And people, that's not my deal. I don't want to sit and cut all day.
Are you still riding the punk train? What are we listening to these days?
I mean, you know, I think it's more singer-songwriter. Yeah, the punk I do when I'm working out or something.
Sure.
I mean, you can never go wrong with Social Distortion, Rancid. You know, it was just kind of crazy. You start looking back at all those, and I'm like, wow, I made shoes for those guys. Even the Pixies, I've made shoes for the guys when they did a reunion tour. I don't remember what year that was.
I don't know, but Surfer Rosa was such a great album.
Yeah, I've made shoes for so many people that all that music inspires me. Everything, whether it's modern or from the past. I don't just say I'm only into one thing. Punk thing is a little too aggressive for me these days. It kind of gets you going. I mean, if I'm doing a mountain bike ride or something, then yeah, you want to listen to that. But not all the time.
Sure. Well, so how did you, did your creative style, or at least your aesthetic more importantly, was that kind of the same then as it is now, or did it morph at all?
No, I think when I first started, it was very punk rockabilly, right? And
Okay.
that's kind of what was happening at the time. That's who I was. And I have to say, it's more rock and roll now. And
Okay.
rock and roll in the sense of an attitude. You know,
Right.
like there
It's
was
a
that
little
big
edgy.
the controversy when was it Gene Simmons didn't want NWA to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, right? That's rock and roll, though.
Right.
That's still rock and roll.
Against the grain.
Against the grain. Like, okay, if you're going to be specific to a genre of music, like, there's jazz musicians that have been rock and roll. And
Totally.
it doesn't matter. So, yes, it was very punk, it was very rockabilly. But for me, I think when I made the change into more of just rock and roll, there was a band that I used to work with, I became very good friends with. It was James Hall.
Okay.
And James Hall is what I consider and what many consider the guy who started the Southern rock movement, right?
Okay.
Precursor to
Leonard Skinner.
no, not that old.
Okay.
So I would say Black Crowes,
Okay.
Marilyn Manson, who came from Atlanta, the guitar player from Nine Inch Nails, Robin Fink, was from that area. So James Hall was that guy. He got signed at a really early age. I don't remember who signed him. He was 19. But they didn't know where to put him because what was happening at the time was that rap rock, right?
Oh, the Limp Bizkits of the world. Yeah.
So he just kind of became this underground cult guy. Like, I'd go to concerts and you see all of the massive musicians at a show at the Viper Room. And I'm designing his clothes. I'm designing his shoes. My tailor's making his clothes. And that's when I started getting a little bit more of rock and roll feel. Like, he was really small guy, great shape, but he'd wear high-waisted women's pants with a zipper in the back. Just whatever, right? But
Right.
then he would have this amazing blazer that we would make for him. And then I would make him like a whatever color loafers that he wanted to wear. But he'd come out with this crazy guitar. And then Robin Fink, who was playing with Nine Inch Nails and Guns N' Roses, would be his guitar player when he came into town.
No way.
This is just insane.
That's crazy.
It's rock and roll, right?
It's also the Viper Room. So.
Yeah, exactly, but that was rock and roll. And I think that's when my style started evolving a little bit more. And then I started traveling. Before, I would say when I was 30, I started traveling to Asia because I was consulting for brands that wanted to manufacture in China.
How did they find you?
Just kind of word of mouth. I worked with surf brands. I worked with sandal brands, designing for them. I think everything's just word of mouth at that point. Like, where'd you get those? Oh, call my buddy George.
Right, right.
So I'm going to China. Then I start going to Europe right around 2009, 2010 for the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. I'm one of the finalists there. Out of 10, I'm one of 10. I don't win, but my life changes. Anna Wintour and Vogue and the CFDA just completely changed my life.
Wow.
My first gig was consulting for Fratelli Rossetti. We did a project where I actually went to Jenna Lyons, who was the creative director of J. Crew.
J. Crew, yeah.
And we did a collaboration, a three-way collaboration. I went to Bergdorf, where they were selling my shoes. I got Fratelli Rossetti into Bergdorf's. And what I had done is, they have this, there's three brothers that own the brand right now. Their father is, the story is that he is the one who invented the tassel loafer for men.
No way.
In the 60s.
Wow.
The Brera loafer, which is this region in Milan, the Brera region, right? Where everything was always cool and hip. And his aesthetic was very much like my aesthetic. It was hand-colored, but not perfect, right? My influence was Berluti. I was like, oh my gosh, those are so beautiful.
Theirs are all like hand burnished and.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we do, but a different feel, right?
Yes.
Mine has a very punk Southern California aesthetic.
Yeah.
Also a very casual Southern California aesthetic.
I think that also is commanded by your shape as well.
It could be, yeah.
Because like Berluti's going to be a lot more of an Italian shape.
Yeah. It's a European shape, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a European shape because Berluti's French, but they all have, like, the British, the French, the Italians have different aesthetics in terms of the toe. I've had very elongated toes. They look cool. That's not me.
Right.
I'm not super short and stubby. I'm not a British toe. I've kind of, from my travels, I've kind of figured out who I like and how my last fits, right? So we're like a D and a half across the instep. The American guys have a little bit of a wider foot.
Sure.
We don't like to break in our shoes. There's all of these little things that kind of go into account for
So
our
true. Yeah.
Yeah. Where in Europe, I remember when I was at Fratelli Rossetti, I was like, these shoes hurt my feet. Like, yeah, you must break them in for 3 weeks. I'm like, no. Add some width to the last, make them so they fit right now, or I'm not going to put them on.
Right.
And they're like, well, you have to break them. I'm like, no, come on, guys.
So when I was at Allen Edmonds, I had to, I mean, the level of education you have to give people, right? And I was also the manager of a new location in San Diego when I opened that store. So even though there were people in San Diego that wore them, knew the brand, etc., there was this whole like flock of guys that never even heard of Allen Edmonds, didn't know why they were $425 a pair, didn't know the definition of breaking in a shoe, like all this stuff. And so I totally understand what you're saying. Like it's so true. It's 9 times out of 10 the guy's like, these don't fit, and they're like, no, but they do.
They do, but the thing is I think when you try to go against the grain and say you have to wear them for 5 weeks, you lost me at that point, right?
Right.
So what we do, we use a very soft insole, very soft outsole. It's already, so the average manufacturer, whether it's Allen Edmonds or a European brand, they don't want their shoes to crease when someone tries them on.
Right.
That's understandable.
Because you can't sell them.
Because you can't sell them. For me, I've never been bought, nobody buys 30 pairs of a size 10.
Right.
For me, they're bought like a collection. And Stanley Silver, who was my first mentor at Fred Siegel Feet, he said to me, he says, George, your shoes, you're not Gucci. You're not Prada. And I was like, okay. Like, and it wasn't a put down.
Right.
It's, you're not a black shoe guy.
Right.
You don't have that logo and you don't have that brand and you haven't been doing it for 80 years. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He says, you need to make shoes that are going to fit within who you are and what your customer wants.
Right.
He says, going forward, George, do not bring me anything unless it elicits some type of reaction. They might hate it or they might love it. And when they put these on, they don't want to break it in. Someone will suffer for a name brand. They're not going to suffer for you because you're too young.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that actually makes sense. And I stuck with those ethos all along where, okay, we're going to use a soft outsole, a soft insole. I want my leathers to crease. I want, you wear my shoes twice and they're like, these feel amazing. And that's what we hear from everybody. I don't care. If you don't like the creases, then it's not for you.
Right. Sure.
Right? That's every brand has who they are. The creases are your gait. That's who you are. Right. The way you walk.
Right. The way you crease the shoe is you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like your denim.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like
sure.
If you're into raw denim, you gotta have to break those in too.
Exactly.
But there's also other denim. But then the wear marks are like how your wallet creates the outline on your back pocket or what have you.
The way you sit, do you drive with it? If you don't drive with it, you may never crease it.
Right, exactly.
All of those things.
What do you think is one of the largest misconceptions about shoemaking?
I think how easy it is. Like what we have.
Even you said yourself it was easy, right? Like early days.
It's not easy. It's easy. Okay, so if early inspiration for me is Margiela.
Okay.
Margiela, the designer, right? Yes.
Yeah.
I have a pair of those. I think I have 2 pairs of those.
Yeah, these are the only sneakers I wear anymore.
So we got to get you in a pair of ours. You're going to try these on. You're going to like freak out.
Okay.
So if you look at what Margiela designed and his team and him as the creative director, everything looks so simple. And it is simple once you figure it out, right?
Right.
But it's not easy in the beginning.
Right.
It's really difficult. And I think that's the whole premise of what we do is we want things to look, because true luxury is also quiet, right? I get what's happening with logos. I'm not saying that's not
it comes
true.
and goes though.
I'm not saying that's not luxury, but what I'm saying is my clients love to fly under the radar, right? It's good who they are.
So back to your Margiela comment though, like I totally understand what you're saying. And I think one of the better analogies that I've sort of come up with over the years is, like an architect, if you're doing steel, concrete, and glass, minimalism, in other words, like uber modern, those lines have to be straight. Those mistakes can't be visible because of minimalism, you can witness the mistake that much easier. Right. So like the Margiela thing about it being clean, under the radar, simple,
which is very not simple.
Exactly. You do a made to order situation too, right?
Yeah,
Like a
that's
program.
kind of like our big business.
So how does what is the process? How does it function?
Let's say you're in Chicago, right? By the way, hey guys, I read about you, or I'm interested, or you go on our website. On our website, you're going to be able to purchase as is, or you can design your own. There's 2 options. And we have our 4 top styles for men and women that we're launching with. And once you purchase, for example, a Nike ID, once you click the button, that's it. You're getting your shoe. With us, what we do is you've already answered what size do you wear in dress shoes or sneakers. Then it gives us an idea. Then we'll call you, send an email, Mr. So-and-so, can we set up a call? We want to send you fit samples and swatches of what you're getting. And oh, wow. So you literally get fit samples. In that email or the call, you could say, I'm a size 10 on one foot, 10 and a half on the other. I'm an E on one, D on the other. And we'll send you fit samples until that's figured out.
Sweet.
Your size. Then you've already paid for it. So we send you the fit samples. You try them on. You're going to keep your swatches. You keep the swatches. The fit samples come back. Once it's confirmed, then we start your order, and you're probably looking, pre-pandemic, we were about 6 to 8 weeks. Right now, we're about 8 to 12.
Okay.
We're just not getting all our materials. We order 1,000 feet, we might get 700.
Right.
So
I'm going through the same
Yeah.
stuff, man.
Yeah.
I totally.
So that's kind of the way it works. That part is not simple, but we've figured out we have less than a 1% return rate on our made orders. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So like, what's something that people should consider when ordering their first pair? Like,
Well,
if you're into tailoring,
yeah.
a navy suit,
Yeah.
right, is usually the go-to first suit you ever have made. What about shoes?
I would say before you go to style, you need to remember, just because this is made based on your size, it's not going to be a running shoe. A lot of people don't understand that. They
Right.
think, they think it's custom or bespoke. It's like, no, that's not bespoke. This is made to order. Bespoke is something different. Bespoke was that blue boot that I showed you
Right,
downstairs.
where you have your personal last.
I'm adjusting to your size as close as possible, right? And once you confirm, that's what we can do. I can do things that make it softer or a bit more stiff or a higher heel by 1/4 inches, like a 1/4 inch. But I think what every guy needs is a really cool brown ankle boot, because that ankle boot you can rock with jeans, you can rock with chinos, a casual suit, in one of our finishes. That to me is...
Now, do you mean more like a Chelsea?
No, this one is a little bit... Not everybody will go here. I think like a 2 or 3 eyelet. I think ours is a... I don't know if it's 2 or 3 eyelet ankle boot, like a Chukka boot.
Okay, Chukka, yeah.
Like a cool Chukka boot. Sure. This one we do really well with, but some guys have started with this. I go with a Chukka boot. Guys,
I can't even wear... Like, I had this really narrow Chelsea, beautiful boot.
Yeah.
And my wife, first of all, she hated it. And second of all, I just felt weird wearing it.
Really?
Like, even just like looking in the mirror. And
Was it too
like,
long or?
No, I just think it was just a little too British.
Okay.
Like, it just looked like, it just wasn't Wesley. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't me. Even though I loved the way it looked on other people, I tried it myself. Big failure.
There's shoes that we make that I won't wear that I really think are beautiful.
Yeah.
It's just not me.
Are you a boot guy? I find that
I'm boot 24/7.
I love boots.
I wear boots in the summer, boots in the winter. I don't have a lot of shoes. I have a couple pairs of shoes. But for me, what I do is I get the same style in different colors until I get sick of it.
Right.
And then I donate them or give them away, and then
Sure.
on to the next style.
Yeah.
But yeah, this boot, it's the double Gore. I love it. We do a side zip. I don't wear that one. For some reason, I don't like the way it looks. I don't know what it is, but it's one of our top sellers.
So you said you make your laces here?
The second sewing machine, we make all our shoelaces.
So take me through that, because they look like they would just be like woven or like, okay. So this, all right. So I don't even know how to describe this. It's fabric folded over.
It's a cotton poly blend.
Okay.
Which makes them indestructible. Our laces don't rip. That's another thing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Our laces don't rip because it's cotton poly, and it's just the folding and how to finish them.
God, these are super light shoes.
Yeah. So the sneakers are made in Mexico. We make our sneakers in Mexico, and then when some of them we finish here, some of them they come finished like that.
And how much are these
I
if
think
they're
that
already
one is
finished?
like $350.
And then if you finish them here?
Well, it's a little bit more if we finish them, but I think that one probably would come at $350. We've experimented with both. We're going to try to have everything finished in Mexico. It doesn't quite, obviously, doesn't look the same way as we make ours.
Right.
But they still finish them by hand. They hand color them there.
And what kind of material is this?
So that's a calf upper crust. It starts off as a nude crust and it gets colored. The lining is my sneakers are online, but around the ankle is the mestizo. It's the goat lamb combo that we talked about.
Sure, on the back
And
of the
then
watch
we
strap.
have, if you look inside of that one, where most sneakers, if you take your sneaker off,
Yeah.
you remove the removable insole, you're either going to have a cardboard or a sponge. I actually have leather on the inside of mine. So the cardboard will never mold to your foot. And there's nothing wrong with it. They want it for rigidity. They want that shape to stay in the shoe. And if it's sponge, the rebound's going to go away after some point, right?
Okay.
With leather, it actually molds to your foot.
Sure.
And it has a different feel to it. So these things are like super flexible, soft. There's a leather insole on that one as well.
Right.
This took a little while to develop, and it has a bit of a vintage feel. Kind of like
It's kind of a court shoe.
court shoe, old tennis shoe. But at the same time, I want to do something that nobody else is doing, right? It looks like something, but not exactly. There's very difficult to make a shoe with no toe. The toe bumper. Do you see how there's no toe lift on that on the last?
Right.
That was a pain. Yeah.
So you were telling me downstairs that you guys do what's called a Blake welt.
It's a Blake or a McKay construction. So
How does that differ from a hand welt?
Well, the hand welt, it's in the stitching, right?
Right.
So the hand welt, you add the leather and you're doing this kind of a cross stitch to make it super strong, and basically it's indestructible. What we do in a Blake or a McKay stitching, you glue the welt, and it has teeth that actually attach to, let's say if this was the last here, it attaches. Then you run a stitch this way.
Through each tooth?
It kind of catches the teeth.
Got it.
Then you put a midsole. Actually, the midsole gets stitched. So it's the welt, midsole gets glued on, and then you have the stitch that goes up and down this way.
I see.
And it catches the teeth and the midsole. Then you add the outsole.
Now, why do you choose to do that method versus a hand welt, aside from, I don't know, cost, time?
Well, I mean, it's also flexibility. I've tried welted. We can do hand welted. We've had people, and it just doesn't do well for us. It's not my customer. There are machines now that will do a welted construction that's super flexible, but you can't just make what we're making. Like, they're not going to want 20 pairs, right?
I see what you're saying. So the physical flexibility of the shoe.
Yeah, that's a huge part.
So it's a lot more stiff if it's a hand welt.
Much more stiff. Even a welted shoe, it's much more stiff because of the stitching. It's meant to prevent water from getting into the shoe. And they say you better for resoling, but we have no problem resoling our shoes. We actually put it back on the last. Most of our clients send all their shoes back to us, and there's never been an issue. Unless the shoe's already dead.
If somebody wanted to do a bespoke shoe through you, which you can do, what is that time kind of turn around?
You know, it's really not a time because, so made to order, we already know how long that takes to make and everything. A bespoke shoe, we have one shoe downstairs. He hasn't come back in 6 months to come and pick up his shoes.
Oh, I see.
So, but here's the thing with bespoke. It's a matter of preference. If I tell you this is it, you're like, no, my pinky toe still hurts. I got to adjust it so your pinky toe doesn't hurt anymore, right? That's it. Or a lot of athletes, basketball players play with 2 socks, right? So they have to get used to that, what that feels like. What that shoe, a leather sole, what that feels like without 2 socks and no padding. So can you give me more padding? Sure, we can give you more padding, but this is what it's going to look like. There's all of this hand holding that goes on when it's a full bespoke shoe.
So when a basketball player, and I have heard that before, that a lot of guys wear 2 socks, is that literally for cushion only?
I think it's probably cushion. I've never asked them why.
Or sweat absorption?
It's probably cushion. It's probably what they've always done, right? So if you're wearing 2 socks, you're going up a size to a size and a half possibly.
Especially in width.
Yeah, for sure width.
Yeah.
Right across the instep. And then some of them wear ankle braces on top of it, in between the socks.
Right.
And you have some guys that play with orthotics.
Right.
So all of those things, and that's the extreme, right? I say when it's a full bespoke, for me to develop the first last, right? And typically we like to go with last that we have, and it's going to be based on your measurements. We have a guy right now, the guy who hasn't picked up his shoes or his boots, he's a 10.5 with a width of a 14.
Oh, whoa. Yeah.
Massive foot.
Duck feet.
I mean, yeah, he's got a really big foot. And we had to make them, I'll show them to you afterwards. We had to make them look so they didn't look like that.
Right. So
You're
you just
playing
make
a lot
it
with the
taller.
instep.
Yeah.
You're playing a lot with the instep, so it'll open up as he puts it on.
Sure.
So that's part of the Bespoke. I would say Bespoke is anywhere 6 months to a year with all the back and forth. I think 6 months, best case scenario, because you're developing a brand new last. Now, I can make adjustments, like let's say a semi-custom. Let's say you come in here, hey, George, I'm a size 10, 10 and a half. I wear orthotics. We would actually adjust the width or the height, all the specs of your orthotic to the last. The problem with orthotics is you have to go up half a size, right? Because your foot's lifted in orthotics.
Right.
So now you're coming out around the ankle and you're really pushing across the instep.
Right.
So with the adjustment to the last, it actually sits lower. Yeah.
Interesting.
I put it on the bottom of the last, which is not anything hard.
Right.
But it's a little bit of...
It's an extra step.
It's an extra step. So we get a lot of that. Most people don't need full Bespoke, but if you have a 10 and a half with a width of a 14,
Yeah.
you need full Bespoke. And you want it to look a certain way, right? You don't want it to look like an orthopedic shoe.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I would say full Bespoke 6 months to a year. You do have your own custom last. You saw the last downstairs. Those are all custom last for all the guys. And then those guys have a last without the adjustments. If you make more than one, then I'll go and make you a last.
Got it.
If you're only going to buy one shoe, then we're going to work off the adjustments, because what happens is those custom adjustments over time, as you tap on it, the size is going to go away, right? But if you have a resin last or a true last, you can tap on all you want and it's not going to change the size of it.
Right. Sure.
So depending on what the client wants, if he says, hey, I'm going heavy with this thing, I'm going to want 5 pairs, you're like, okay, I'm going to send this and I'll get the last made. We used to work with Italy. Now we work with Mexico, especially since the pandemic. Yeah. We've always worked with both. For us, we have heel suppliers in Italy, here in the States, and Mexico. But we're tending to find that it's the same thing, because all of the leather from Mexico is American beef. So it goes from here to Mexico, and then it comes back to here. Yeah.
Oh, man. I've had this conversation so many times about apparel, too, and how, like, cheap T-shirts are such a larger carbon footprint than expensive T-shirts, which makes zero sense because it has to travel all around the world.
You're actually cutting things out.
It's so crazy. Yeah, that's
and it's
that's
all about the
insane.
dollar, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, when I was at Toomey, I'm not going to say who it was. So I'm in the factory, and I said, and this is an Italian brand. And I said, when did these arrive? Thinking, because these factories, they want to see. They're like, oh, no, these are shipping to Eastern Europe. From Eastern Europe, they're going to Italy and then get finished there. And you're like, you're just kind of crushed.
Wow.
You're like, seriously?
Wow.
It just doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
I get it, but that's not an honest thing, in my opinion, right?
I think there were some Italian brands, and I can't name names because I don't know the validity of them, but things that were like made in China, shipped to Italy, finished in Italy, and then had tags inside that said made in Italy.
Yeah. Well, every law is... So U.S., from my understanding, the U.S. is pretty strict about what portion has to be made in the U.S. for it to say made in U.S.
Yeah.
Japan is super strict. The Germans are really strict.
Yeah.
And I don't know what other countries, because I look at shoes and they say handmade in Italy, and you're like, at $300, this isn't
There's
handmade.
no way. Yeah.
It's not handmade, right? $300 is not handmade, but you can say made in, but don't say handmade. I've had people like, oh, I had this handmade shoe, and I said, how much did you pay? $250. Like, okay, and
hands had to touch it as it was going through a machine.
exactly, but that's not handmade. That's just
No,
not.
I know.
It's not handmade. When someone is using, because I've seen these beautiful factories. Fratelli Rossetti, oh my gosh, beautiful factories. They actually hand color their shoes. There's a lot of hands that touch their shoes, but there isn't one guy cutting it out by hand. They cut their tassels by hand, but not the entire shoe. They make hundreds of thousands of pairs a year. It doesn't work that way, That's a real industrial factory. Yeah.
What is sort of the structure of Esquivel? Because you said you said you had business partners. Was that just financial business partners, or
they keep me sane? So,
oh, really?
No, so I
drive them nuts. Is that the exchange?
Yeah, I drive them nuts. In terms of the structure, we're an LLC. I control most of the company, And these are guys that I've known for years. Most of my partners are my CFO, my attorneys, guys that love my shoes that said, hey, I want to help you.
Cool.
We did have a partner in 2019 and those guys pulled out, which was going to be, they were going to buy a large stake of the brand and then they just pulled out and disappeared. So, but I think for us, it's going well right now. Like the way it is, we're still trying to figure out this thing, right? We haven't had like a steady 18 months of what this should be.
Right, of course.
We've had 6 months of amazing, as I told you, and then nothing, right?
Right.
I think for us, the next phase is to get Esquivel X off the ground because I don't have to manufacture this. I can make 100,000 pairs. I can make 300,000 pairs. And what our goal is to develop, I think Mexico's untapped. And I've been going there for so many years to develop products for other people.
Now, where are you going when you go?
So we go to León, we go to Guadalajara, we go to different parts. I'm working on a couple other projects with the indigenous people. So, and that's kind of some unisex projects and some women's projects. But these are made in León and Guadalajara.
Cool.
So hand lasting them. This one is a Blake. This one is the Strobel construction. But I think now we're hand lasting them. I like the hand lasting better because when you use which is California or Strobel construction, it tends to pull up because you stitch the insole to the upper and you have to stretch it to get it to feel right. But as soon as you take the last out, sometimes it pops up a little bit.
Oh, I see.
So you get like this
little pucker.
Yeah, well, it's not a pucker. It wiggles the sole. Also because this is leather. It's not a hard cardboard. If I had a hard cardboard insole, it would control that, right? You'd say, you're not moving. This is it. I don't want that. I want this to be as natural as possible. So I think we're going to go back to hand lasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Just little things like that.
What is your last name? Like
Esquivel.
No, but I'm saying like what nationality
So
is it?
on my mother's side, I'm first generation from Mexico.
Okay.
On my father's side, I'm second generation from Mexico.
Okay.
The origin is Basque. And the definition of the name that is the house behind the lime trees. Hence the two lime trees when you walk in Esquivel House.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
The house behind the lime trees.
Now, do you go to Spain?
I've been to Spain a couple times when I was working with Toomey as the creative director. I went there a couple times.
What year was that?
I was creative director 13, 14, and part of 15.
Now, how did that come about?
All because of the CFD Evoke Fashion Fund. So the CFD Evoke Fashion Fund, when I say it changed my life, and thank you, Anna Winter and the CFDA, literally my life changed. So I didn't win. And the accessories editor at Vogue says, George, I know you didn't win. I know it hurts. Trust me. We like what you're doing. Anna really likes what you're doing. You just need some guidance. I'm like, okay. And whatever. Annoyed. I remember got drunk that night. I didn't win.
Right.
But I was also older than most people going through it because now I'm married. I got kids. You know, it's just like I'm about 10 years older than my counterparts. There's some that are my age or even a little bit older, but for the most part, I'm a little bit older.
You got different levels of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking to myself, crap. If they open up the door, I'm putting my foot in it and you're not closing it on me. I'm going to take advantage of this. So they said, call us. Okay. I called them. I called the accessories editor. What do I need to do? Okay. You're going to meet with Anna. You need to ask her a couple questions. She's going to ask you what you want. And it's on. And I'm like, okay. Me not knowing who Anna Winter was.
Really?
I knew who she was, but not really. Like, I was not in
fashion. I mean, Margiela's kind of a deep cut.
Yeah, but I wasn't, but it wasn't like, I wasn't going to fashion weeks, right? I was going to, I started a trade show because I didn't like trade shows. Wait,
you started a trade show?
Yeah, I had a trade show with my partners. It was called Guild at one point.
Oh, I heard about Guild.
Yeah, the first season we had a Maybach, a Bentley, and a Rolls pick up the buyers.
Where was that? Was that here?
It was in Vegas at the Palms Place Hotel.
No kidding.
Yeah, so we did that for about 3 seasons. And then
ran out of Rolls Royce money?
No, we actually made money from day one.
Oh, that's great.
What happened was the other trade shows started threatening the brands that if they continued to show with us in Vegas, they wouldn't let them show in New York and Paris.
Right.
It is what it is. I learned. I didn't do it to make money. I did it because I wanted to show with my friends, and I'm sick of paying $5,000 and they give you a meal ticket for a drink and a sandwich.
Right.
So that's kind of how everything I've done. I'm like, you know what? And we made money from day one.
That's
and
incredible.
It was really cool. But
God, I've forgotten about Guild.
yeah, so we had Guild at the Palms Place, which was amazing. So
That's awesome.
I don't win. I say, okay, I'm going to have a meeting with Anna Wintour, and I'm in there. She's like, so what is it that you want? And, through this whole process of the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund, they're putting you through the paces. Who are you? What do you want to do? And I realized I didn't understand branding, and I didn't understand international business, and I didn't even understand big business. I had a good business, like a really, really good business, but I was the guy. I'd show up to your house or at a recording studio and you 30 pairs of shoes at $800. Like, that's not a bad day, right?
Right.
But it wasn't bigger. And I think what the CFDA showed me was how to dream bigger. So I tell Anna I'd like to have an understanding of international business and understand branding. And she says, you need to go back to school. I'm like, well, how am I going to go back to school? Not knowing the power of Anna Wintour, right? I kind of did, but not really.
So, okay.
So she says, oh, you have to go back to school. I'm like, how am I going to do that? No, silly, you need to consult. How am I going to do that? My consulting was I'd been designing sandals for local brands, and I've worked with local brands, sneakers and sandals. It wasn't like the international Europeans, right? So I'm walking out of her office, and my BlackBerry's blowing up. The fashion director of Net-a-Porter, Anna Wintour says that we need to meet, and I'm in town. Can you meet tomorrow? I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
This is kind of crazy.
That's the door opening for you.
That was a door opening.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, hey, Fratelli Rossetti just reached out to Anna, and they're looking for a creative person. Are you interested? I'm like, well, yes.
Yeah.
And they said, you need to do a presentation. I'd never done a presentation at Fashion Week. I'm like, how do I do a presentation? I didn't even know what a studio was. Everything was out of the garage or what we call the distribution center, which was my garage.
So what did your presentation consist of?
So I asked her, I said, I don't know what to do. She said, bring out your best styles. One of the brothers of Fratelli Rossetti is going to come and look at your styles, separated by men and women. This is the season. I'm like, okay, cool. So I did that. He came through. He's like, I love your work. I was like, okay, cool. Now, at this point, we were making everything already in-house.
Okay.
We'd already been making everything in-house. And he said, I really love what you do. I said, thank you. He says, would you be interested in consulting and working with us? They wanted to make a play to come back into the States. And I said, sure. So I get the full weight of Vogue behind me because I'm one of her kids now, right? Part of the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. And Vogue supports it. Then I said, wow, what am I going to do? I said, I got an idea. And going back to that loafer. So they hire me, and I'm flying to Milan every 4 to 6 weeks for 2 years from LA. So I'm going to Milan. Like, this is insane. Their factory, I'm learning so much, and real manufacturing. These guys have been around since the 50s. And I said, you know what? We need to do something with J. Crew. And they didn't understand J. Crew because they didn't understand the mail order business. We did because the U.S. is Sears and all of these catalog businesses. To them, catalog is cheap. Same thing in Mexico. Catalog is cheap. Where us, catalog's not cheap. We're such a big country, right?
Right.
We had to do catalogs. You used to be able to order a house from Sears, like a whole house.
Yeah.
So I finally convinced Diego, the brother. I said, let's go meet with him. He met with Jenna Lyons. And he sees Jenna and all her amazingness.
So
and
you guys pitched J. Crew.
I pitched J. Crew.
So J. Crew didn't seek you out.
No,
J. Crew didn't
but
know
see,
you.
Jenna did because she was one of the board members of the CFDA of the Fashion Fund.
Got it.
So she knew who I was. And I texted her, I emailed her, Jenna, I have an idea. And because what I did is, so they showed me their collection. And it was very European, exactly what you said about that boot.
Yeah.
I said, there's no way I would ever rock these things. They're cool, but I don't dress that way, right?
It's not J. Crew.
It's not even me. It wasn't me. So I took this famous loafer and their famous wingtip, and I threw them in the washing machine. And it comes out, and I'm like, that's a shoe. And the brothers start yelling at each other and screaming, la, la, la. And I said to the girl, I said, what are they saying? They're pissed off that you washed something that is so heritage. I mean, and one brother liked it, the other one didn't like it. I literally took their name and I put it in the washing machine. I said, here you go. that's what we pitched J. Crew, and she's like, these are beautiful. It's kind of funny that Jenna Lyons show that she just did, she was wearing the shoes in one of the episodes, and she credited Fratelli Rossetti. And all I did is took a classic shoe and washed it. Literally, and I said to them, I said, guys, here's the story. This is supposed to be, because I'm a romantic, because I never had adventures as a kid. I started having adventures later in life. And my life, what kept me sane was being a romantic. Wow, if I could be on stage, this is what I'd wear. Wow, if I could do this, this is what I would have. If I had the money to do this, keep in mind, I was a poor kid, like really poor.
That's exactly how I've approached Standard H. Like, I've made the stuff that I want to wear first. Like, I am customer number one. And I can barely afford my stuff. Like, Jonathan Ward says the same thing. He's like, I can't afford my cars.
Exactly.
You know, it's one of those things. But, I mean, somebody's got to wear the samples.
Somebody's got to wear the sample. And for me, it's like not everything fits me, right?
Right.
I'm also designing.
I'm in between sizes in my own apparel brand.
I mean, my friends that are musicians, they're 5'11", 160 pounds. You're like,
oh God,
I wish I had that body.
Soaking wet.
I mean, I'm like a 48.
So let me ask you this. So when you start to work with somebody like J. Crew, like what is that conversation like other than, hey, Jenna, like, check this out? Like, does she get to decide in that
She decided.
context? So she didn't have to talk to Mickey Drexler about it?
No, she was the creative director. Mickey Drexler, she actually called Mickey Drexler in. So I show up, and then Jenna's like, I love all your accoutrements. And I had my bag, and I'm a bag guy.
Right.
And I have my totes. And she's like, I love all of this, George. What's going on? The nicest woman in the world.
Yeah.
A true visionary.
Sure.
Who she is on the show is who I experienced that she was. So sharp, so amazing, so talented, knows how, and a true creative director, right?
Sure.
Knows how to manage things. So she goes, what do you got? I said, well, let me tell you a little bit. This is Diego. And they knew the brand.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Fratelli Rossetti. They've been around Madison Avenue. They have a store, and they've been around for a long time.
Sure.
And I said, here's the shoes. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love these. And it was the most expensive shoe they'd ever sold. Yeah.
And they sold them.
They sold them.
Good sell-through.
It was a good sell-through. It wasn't like thousands and thousands of pairs.
Right.
It wasn't meant to be that.
Was it mostly just in their flagship stores?
No, I don't remember where they went.
Okay.
But it was a loafer and a lace-up of like a red, a green, a black. And then Mickey comes in. He's all, F yeah, let's do it. This is cool. Like,
yeah.
That was it.
That's
my
great.
job was done.
That's
my job
sick.
was done.
I love that.
So that was my first, that was with Fratelli Rossetti. So then Anna Wintour starts this thing called Americans in Paris, where she wanted to expose Americans to the European market. And I had a couple Japanese accounts through friends, but nothing big. I'd been trying to get Sarah from Colette to see my product.
Oh, man.
Warris, who was my class 2009 of the Fashion Fund, the CFDA, actor, and then he had a jewelry line, super cool guy. And he's in all the Wes Anderson movies. We became buddies. I made him some pink Chukka boots, and I think he ended up having like 8 pairs. Same pink.
Sick.
And so I've been trying to get Sarah, because the Fashion Fund was much different than it is now. It wasn't as fast as it is now because of social media. There was a buildup, right? And it was magazine.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And there was this hand holding, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen now, and I haven't experienced it, but it literally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from experience, they guided me through the whole process. They mentored me in a real mentoring way. So we're in Paris, and this one's crazy. The first season of Americans in Paris, and we're in the Palais Royal upstairs, and I'm like, oh, this is crazy. And Anna invited the ambassador to France's wife, Geoffroy, who was the CEO of the Richemont Group, of Chloe. He comes through, he looks, I love your shoes. Would you be interested in a collaboration? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
Say no more.
Say no more. So now I'm doing a collaboration with Chloe. It took a little while to get off the ground, and there was some hiccups there, but that went, right? And then Tommy Hilfiger then sponsors Americans in Paris. And him and I become friendly. And he likes what I'm doing. He says, George, I really, really love what you're doing. I said, wow, thank you. And he says, would you ever be interested in doing a collaboration? I'm like, duh.
Say no more.
Say no more. Here we go. And so I asked him one time, I said, and now talk about a humble, amazing person that wants everybody to succeed. Him and Anna. And Hilfiger.
Really?
Yeah. And all of these people, what I have found, the people that I've worked with, they want other people to succeed, which has been amazing.
Yeah.
I can still text Tommy, and not that I do, and, hey, congratulations. Thank you so much. I miss you. Like, that's kind of the relationship now, right?
Right.
It's not like, hey, buddy, let's hang out.
Right,
That's
right.
not my relationship with anybody, and I don't want anybody to think that that is my relationship. Because I have my family, I have my thing, but these people have guided me and mentored me along my path.
That's incredible.
So, Tommy, I said, why would you want to do the collaboration? He says, well, George, two things. You're going to give me some credibility to my brand, and I'm going to give you worldwide exposure. I'm like, okay. So we ended up making 1,000 pairs of shoes. This guy does things the way bigger than luxury brands, in my opinion. So I get an email. They're having bloggers come to get fitted for shoes at our workshop in Orange County.
And what year is this?
I have to look, maybe 7 years ago.
Oh, okay. So a while ago.
So it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So he flew all the bloggers in internationally. Everybody got fitted for shoes. And I'm thinking, well, they're going to pull up in a van. Limo after limo comes rolling in.
It was like Guild.
Like crazy. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, but Tommy is so smart. He hires the best.
Right.
Literally hires the best to do the jobs that need to be done. He's not like, nah, we're not real luxury and we're not charging $10,000 for this or $1,000. No, he doesn't skimp, and he treats his people so well.
That's amazing to hear.
So all of these bloggers come in, and then we go to the Ivy, from Orange County to Ivy for lunch.
Oh my God.
Then we have an event at the store that used to be on Robertson. Then we have a dinner at the Chateau Marmont. So here's the kicker. I think he converted 6 of the flagship stores around the world into an Esquivel or Tommy Hilfiger Esquivel workshop, the windows. It's kind of crazy. The Champs-Élysées, the one in Robertson, I think the one on Regent Street, if it was open. I mean, it was crazy.
Wow.
So then it keeps getting better. So here's where it gets crazy. So my thing is, I'm always talking to Vogue and what do I need to do? This is amazing. What can I do to support? Because I realize you have to give back, right? You can't just be taking. You got to give back. So initiatives I would always support. How do we make this happen? So I get an email one day from Ricky DeSole, who's Domenico DeSole's daughter, right?
Okay.
From the Gucci movie.
Yeah, Gucci Group.
And again, Ricky, sweetheart, amazing. She's now at Nordstrom, I believe. She's doing something with Nordstrom. But we had become friends because she was an assistant to an accessories editor. Then she gets promoted. She sends me an email. I call her. She says, Toomey's looking for a creative director, and we think it should be you. Are you interested? I'm like, well,
Wow.
duh.
Right.
Here we go again. So I met with a CEO. It's kind of funny because there was an agent who was trying to get me a job with Toomey at the time, and he was talking to the vice president, someone else. And the CEO at the same time had reached out to Anna Wintour. I'm looking for a creative director. So I met with him.
So it's like the perfect storm.
Perfect storm. And I had asked the creative director, I said, look, I don't design luggage. He goes, it's not what I'm looking for. It's your aesthetic. You do understand bags. Because I've done bags. We did a couple bags at Fratelli Rossetti, which did well, right? All these that you're seeing, like the duffels over there, that's all Toomey. And I've always played with it. And I was doing things at Fratelli Rossetti. I've never been anywhere to fully immerse myself in anything.
So was Toomey the one that came up with that sort of wave pattern aluminum case, or is that you?
That started when I first got there.
Okay,
it didn't get completed until we were in early talks for that.
Okay.
It's kind of funny. The new creative director and I have this battle. He's a friend of mine. He was VP of design when I was there, and he worked for me.
Okay.
And we're always talk about what's mine and what's his.
Yeah, whose designs whose?
Whose designs whose? Because at the end of the day, they were all my designs if I was a creative director, right?
Right.
So it's just kind of one of those things.
Right.
And he's like, damn you, George, that was mine. I'm like, sorry, Victor, it was mine.
Right.
Doesn't matter that you sketched it.
Under
it was
your
mine.
purview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you could have turned it down, but you didn't.
Exactly. So I meet with a CEO.
That's interesting.
And he says, I need you to bring what you do to our brand and elevate the brand. And then going into, and I had to carry Toomey. That was what I carried, my luggage. And I did custom things to the bags, to my Toomey bags that weren't being done there. I added strips of leather to my pull tabs. I wrapped my handles, but I always bought black.
Right.
So that's something that I implemented, which now to this day still sells.
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
An accent kit with zipper pulls and handle wraps,
Nice.
little things like that. So we meet and tells me what he wants from me. I'm like, amazing. I think we met in like September, October, and I started January 1 of 2013.
Okay.
And that was it. That's a whole nother adventure.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really, really cool. So his direction was make the brand cool, do some cool stuff. What I ended up doing, and I remember meeting with Neiman Marcus, is I took a lot of what they were doing, and they had a lot of categories that I didn't understand, but they looked similar. And I wanted it to be more like, whether it's my footwear with clothes, have everything not be silos, but work together more like sportswear, right?
Right.
So sportswear, you want that jacket to look like the jeans, or you want the sweater, everything's got to match. And that's what I did. I said, guys, even if it's not the same material, let's go with the same colors.
Right.
And I remember it started working, and that was kind of what we did. And where it was something had to be very feminine, I'm like, no, just put gold zippers on it. It'll work. The gold zippers for the women. And it's not about, there's nothing wrong with the company. They were doing great.
Sure.
He just wanted to elevate it a bit. So we ended up doing a collaboration with Colette, which was insane.
Which is what you wanted.
Which is what I wanted with them. I was already in Colette.
Okay.
Yeah, I was already in Colette. We ended up sponsoring Americans in Paris for a couple seasons. We did a collaboration with Public School where the bags walked down their runway. And it was an amazing time for me. What I learned from them, I think, was at all the other companies, when money came up, they'd push me out of the room. Like, you need to leave now. Here, I was one of the executives. I was a creative director. So understanding big business in that way, not to say my business is that big, but to be able to understand. And I remember the CEO said, I really like you because you have your own business. You understand this.
Right.
You're not just like sketching off in La La Land. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. So I remember sending Anna an email after to me. I said, thank you for sending me back to school.
Yeah. So earlier, I did all that I could not to interrupt you, because I thought that that's maybe what she meant.
That's exactly what she meant.
You know?
She sent me back to school.
Right. That's amazing.
She sent me all over the world. She got me Fratelli Rossetti, Chloe, Tommy Hilfiger, and Toomey.
So when you're doing brand deals with people like a Tommy Hilfiger, for example, you said you may or may not have been kicked out of the room for financial discussions. How does that brand deal work? Like, do they pay you as a creative? Are they paying you for your shoes as the wholesale price? Like, how do you make money on that
I think
deal?
it just depends. So for Telly Rossetti, I was a consultant.
Okay.
So I had a fee. It didn't matter how many shoes we sold.
Right. Okay.
Right. Chloe, there was a design fee.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how many shoes they sold. That's kind of the simplest way, right?
Sure.
If you're with Toomey, I was consulting. There's no back end points, nothing like that.
Got it.
Tommy Hilfiger, they bought him at cost plus a small percentage.
Cool.
And my thing is with Tommy, it was a special deal because here is this guy that doesn't need me, right?
Right.
But yet I have to look at it and say, I can't be money hungry. This is something I'm going to learn.
It's
from.
because he wants you.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
doesn't need you.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. And I was going to learn something from him. He was already a great guy. He gave back. Like, okay, we're not losing money on this. The exposure that we got, I think it was GQ Italy did like a 4-page spread on us, and Neymar was on the cover when he was just a kid. I mean, there was just so much press. And I remember seeing Tommy, said, what do you think? He's all, oh my gosh, George, this press is crazy. I'm like, okay. So I kid, but I like to say I'm the precursor of what he did with Bella Hadid.
Oh, that's so funny.
Remember how they did the big Bella Hadid?
Well, he also has like a huge thing with Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, I was, not that he hasn't done collaborations.
Sure.
And look, I'm not that name, and my stuff didn't like fly out because it was a different deal. They're handmade shoes, and it's a loafer and a lace up, and it's not the Flash.
I mean, George, you're an attractive man, but you're no Bella Hadid.
Exactly. And I'm not no Lewis Hamilton either, right? Yeah.
That's really interesting, man. So
But
all of this,
yeah.
like, what did you learn about branding?
I mean, it's not one of those, it's not one thing. I think, as Anna said, I went to school. And branding, what I did learn from branding, there is not one way to do it. Everybody's different, because I can't implement what I learned at Toomey here. I mean, they're going on $600 million a year business. right?
Right.
Like that's you
Astronomical.
I can't implement even with Tommy billions of dollars. I can't implement those things. I think it's telling a story, being concise, understanding who you are. I remember telling Tommy, he says, "So what's the plan for your brand?" I said, "I want to keep it as pure as possible, as long as possible." He goes, "Do it as long as you can. That is an amazing," he says, and he's another one who said, "George, creating something luxury takes so much work, effort, and energy." He literally said it's like a brand is like an entity. It's a living, breathing entity, right?
Sure, yeah.
If you don't feed it whatever it requires, it's going to die. And I was like, wow, that's super interesting. And those are the things that I just picked up along the way, talking to all these amazing people.
Let me ask you a qualifying question to that statement, because I too feel like Standard H is an upper echelon type of brand, right? From manufacturing to quality of goods to even aesthetic, right? And the other brands that I associate with, right? Some of them aspirational, some of them just run of the mill. So if you're feeding the beast, so to speak, are you referring to releases of product? Are you talking about Instagram posts? Like,
I think it's all of it, right?
It's everything, right?
It's all of it what the brand is.
Yeah.
So if I go silent and I don't post anything for 3 weeks, well, what happened?
Right.
I think what I've learned since the pandemic, and here's an interesting thing. Pre-pandemic, I would sell a product every 3 to 5 posts, which is not bad, right? Every 3 to 5 posts with my little followers that we have. Post-pandemic, it's probably every 15 posts.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy. And it's about the noise that's out there, right?
I was just about to say the same.
And it's not that my customers forgot about me. It's that we're all being barraged with so much.
Sure.
Now they're talking about Instagram is not relevant. Now you got to go to TikTok. And now you got to go to Pinterest. And now you got to do... So, and not to say that those things are going to work for me, right? But you have to feed whatever you got to feed your clients.
Yeah.
What do your clients want? Some clients hate emails, so you're not going to send an email. Some clients want to see who the celebrity is that came here. Some clients want to have an event, a dinner, right? So we have dinners when people come up and we're like, wow, that was pretty amazing. We just sold a lot of product. And I think that's what feeding the beast means, right?
Yeah.
And understanding, when I get hired, people say, what would you do with our brand? I said, it's no different than I have 3 kids. You have to study what those kids need.
Right, they're all different.
My son got spanking so much that I had to stop spanking. I had to shave his head because that was a punishment to him. Where my girls, maybe one spanking their entire life. And I think that's no different than a brand, right? What does that brand need? Who is the customer that it's speaking to? And it's kind of being like a creative director. You know, a lot of people say, well, you've never done this or you've never done that. I never did luggage. The brand grew while I was there. We did some really cool stuff. And I think, and at the same time, I exposed that brand and I helped kind of move it forward in the sense of exposing what the brand is. It's beautifully made. Yeah, we took it out of just the black realm, right? And we did some beautiful leather pieces. But at the same time, we talked about luxury. They'd never been in Vogue before. Vogue hadn't really even paid attention to them, to where Vogue was putting them in their magazine, not because of me, but also because it was a combo of me and Toomey, right?
Right.
The aesthetic of the bag, the quality of the bag, the chicness of what we're doing, the story that we're telling, that's what they wanted.
That's great.
Esquire as well, like all of this, all these magazines, and I think that's what being a creative director is. You can understand it's sticking to the core of the brand, right? At the time, so the whole concept of the X on bags, the Givenchy Rottweiler was happening.
Yeah, the T-shirt.
And also on their bags.
Yeah.
And so you got to look at what's happening at the moment, right? So everything's graphic. So I can't put an animal on a Toomey bag, but what I ended up doing is putting a big X on the duffel bag. And that X actually did really well. And it's graphic. It's not offensive to Toomey customers.
Right.
But if I would have done, let's just copy them and put a bird or something, like Wall Street guys
put a Doberman on the front.
Exactly. But that's the moment that's happening, right?
Yeah.
The same thing, like we did these slides for women, and I remember I presented it to Barney's, and they're like, yeah, it's not really us yet or the slides. And I'm like, man, these are it. This is the slide. It's it. It looks chic. It's beautiful. But then here comes Gucci with their slide. Thank you, Gucci, for opening up that door. I've sold
Right.
thousands of that slide because these big brands have opened up the doors to allow me to do certain things,
Oh,
right?
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's where you have to understand what's happening. I didn't replicate Gucci, and I didn't say I'm going to copy a slide. I had a slide, and they told me no on my slide. You know, it's not happening. But then Gucci opens up the door, then everybody else follows, right? Same thing with a Rottweiler. I had to do something graphic on a bag, but I'm seeing what's happening, and I'm seeing how something is working on bags and T-shirts. I'm like, let's just do an X.
Yeah.
And it worked out great, and it turned out really, really good.
Nice. All right, we have to talk about your watch.
Yeah.
So you're doing a really special piece collaboration with Tutima,
Yep.
German watch company.
Yep.
It is only 25 pieces.
Only 20. It's a 25 kit item. So,
How did it start? What's
So
included?
so Tutima, this is, I'm still smiling because I can't believe I got my own watch, right?
Right.
I actually sold some of my watches after I got my own watch. I mean, there's really nothing more baller than having your own watch. If you're into watches.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
If you're into watches and you have a watch with your name on it, that's kind of crazy. And to me, it's like a dream come true. So you want to hear how I got my first watch?
Sure.
So the first watch that I got, we used to live in a motel, 7 of us, my 5 siblings, my mom and dad. And at the time, my dad was hustling, whatever. He'd come to LA, he'd buy clothes and sell them, jewelry, sell them. So keep in mind, he's a drug addict and a drug dealer, so he's just always hustling. On one of those trips, I came with him, and next to where he's buying jewelry, there's a guy who had watches. And he just pulled out the Seiko SKX and showed it to me. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, wow. And then I'm 13 years old.
Yeah.
And he tries to explain to me automatic.
Right.
I'm like,
there's no battery.
there's no battery.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
what?
Yeah.
And I'm blown away. And I'm thinking, wow. And I can't stop thinking about this watch. So I used to work at this house across the street from the motel where we lived. I got paid $1.25 an hour. I saved up my money, $125. I went and bought my watch. Now I got crazy legitimacy. We used to get bused up to the hill where all the rich kids went. I always wanted to surf. I couldn't afford a surfboard. I wanted to skateboard. I couldn't afford a skateboard. But I got this watch that
Now you have
everybody's
this
like,
sick dive
I got
watch.
this sick diver's watch. Everybody, and this is like right around when the G-Shock Frogman came out. And everybody's wearing that. And I show up with this sick diver's watch and everybody's like, oh my gosh.
My dad has one of
Yeah,
those.
exactly. Like, wow, that's crazy. So now it's a whole thing with me, right? My dad keeps taking it from me and pawning it for drugs till I finally never got it back one time. On my 19th birthday, my girlfriend buys me the same type of watch, the Seiko SKX.
Oh my God.
I still have it to this day.
Did you just like?
Well, I mean, it's an emotional thing.
Yeah. Did
right?
you lose it
I
when
kind
she
of
gave it to you?
Yeah, I had no idea that she literally surprised me with it. I didn't even understand.
Which one did you have? The all black or the
I had
Pepsi?
the
or-
black dial.
Okay.
I had the black. It's always the black dial for me.
Yeah.
And
But the black bezel?
the black bezel, black
okay.
dial. Yeah, that's what I had. And I've had to the point where I've given that watch to all my friends over the years, and my brothers all have it. The Seiko
I gave
SKX.
that exact same watch to my dad.
Yeah, and it's
Like years
it's
ago.
literally the forerunner of watches, indestructible.
Yeah,
So
forerunner.
it's indestructible, right? So I'm into watches, and I'm in love with watches. Through the years, I couldn't afford like nice watches, right? I just $300, $400. I'd buy vintage more than anything.
Cool.
If I buy a vintage watch, I've had all kinds of vintage, but they're like, oh, nobody has that. That's a cool watch. Someone's going to ask me, because I'm still rolling up to my clients' houses like, what are you wearing? Oh, it's a vintage. Oh, wow. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I can't flex with my cheap whatever.
Yeah, your platinum day date.
Yeah,
No, it's-
exactly.
it's-
Like, no, but it's a vintage watch.
Yeah.
And I was always making straps for it. Like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And I would always make straps for my clients. So then in 2007, we did a deal with a Taiwanese group, and I got some money and I went and bought my first watch. And that first watch was the Santos 100.
Okay.
And I had read about it. And I'm like, oh my God, the story's beautiful.
Was this on Rodeo? Or where'd you
No,
go?
I got this in Laguna Beach.
Okay.
It was at a store, and someone knew someone at the store, and I went there.
Nice.
I scored on it. I don't know why I ever sold it. I sell my watches a lot.
Okay.
So I get this watch and now I'm hooked. I'm like, oh, then more projects start coming. And I would buy watches to mark kind of anniversaries of certain things. Then I buy it to Tima, the one I'm wearing right now in 2009. So this one is number 15 of 800. And it was to commemorate an anniversary with them. It's a GMT. What I fell in love with about is the Bordeaux dial.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of like Cabernet looking dial.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So I have the watch all these years. It's the only one I haven't sold. I've sold the Santos 100. I almost cried. I don't know. After I sold it, I was like, why did I sell it?
Why did I do this?
I only made $1,000, right?
Right.
I sold a couple Rolexes. Like, why did I sell Rolexes? I've had the Blancpain 50 Fathoms. I'm like, why did I sell that?
Oh, wow.
Like, because I've always come across like really good deals. I think my clients appreciate it, and we're always turning each other on to certain things, right?
Yeah, of course. That's the best part about watches.
Yeah. So
it's the community,
The crazy thing is I've had people that want to trade shoes for watches. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll trade you. Retail to retail. So I've gotten so many watches that way.
Wow.
Yeah, people.
Yeah, because your shoes aren't cheap. Right? So like we kind of neglected price.
Yeah.
So what do they start at?
I mean, like a made to order is probably $900 to $1,500 standard.
Okay.
If you go into the exotic one I showed you downstairs, is probably like $5,000-$6,000.
And then like if they're not made to order, if they're what would you call it? As is that what you said?
No, made to order, you still order it like in stock.
But
like
do you have ready to wear?
We do have some.
Yeah.
But it's very. We have found that a lot of people don't buy our ready to wear. They buy our sneakers.
Right.
They don't want to buy our shoes. They're I think because for 35% more you can get whatever you want.
Yeah.
Why would you buy it?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
When we opened, we had tons of stock, men's and women's. Nobody would buy anything. I'm like, I'm getting depressed. I'm like, nobody's buying my shoes. But then my CFO comes in. He's like, yeah, but look at how many MTOs we're selling. I'm like, okay, that makes me feel better.
Well, I think for that price, the construction's the same, right?
Construction's the same.
So why not make it even more special?
Exactly.
And cut your overhead.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, that's a financial discussion that your CFO saw.
But that's so now what we do is we do limited drops.
Right.
I'll make whatever a shoe. I make 7 pairs. Done.
Got it.
7 pairs. Done.
Got
and
it.
That's what. Oh, you don't have this? Well, I don't have 40 pairs because if I had 40 pairs of that, I can't have 40 pairs of everything.
Right. Sure.
It's
a storage problem too.
It's a storage problem, but it's also I want things to stay fresh in here.
Yeah.
So going back to the watch.
Yeah.
I buy the Tutima, and I've bought all these watches. I've had all them all. And so 2018, I would say, probably 2018, I met an editor, and we were talking watches, and I think I was wearing this one. She goes, "Oh, I know someone over there." Or so I don't remember what it was.
Right.
And she said, "You should really talk to him." And then at some point we connected again, and she says, "I need you to talk to someone. This person, she works in watch PR, and you should connect." I'm like, okay. And we started talking. She liked the story. She said, "I really like what you do. I think your products are amazing.
Yeah.
Here's some brands I work with. Who do you like?" I'm like, well, they're all freaking amazing. And she goes, "What watches do you have?" And one of the watches happens to be, I said, Tutima. She's like, "No." She goes, "You have a Tutima?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "I don't believe you." I'm like, so I sent her a picture. I said, "Here." And she's like, "Wow, that's crazy. You need to meet the president." President comes here, and I had done, there's a concept in there. I had already done it after we talked. And she goes, "You need to put on paper what you would do as a concept." I'm like, it's a full package. Like, it needs to be dual time zone or a GMT. For me, the dual time zone, I was always neurotic about what time I could call my wife to talk to the kids.
Right.
What time they get out of school, what time they wake up. That was always
when you were in Europe.
When I'm traveling Asia or Europe, right? Or the Middle East.
Yeah.
Always, or even in New York, like,
that's true.
Whatever. Just when can I call? Say hi, say goodnight. Got to be the good dad, right? I didn't want to be the jerk that, I missed them again. So that's always, it's a thing for me knowing what time it is back home. So he comes here, we start talking, he goes, "I really love what you do. You want to do something?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "So show me what you're thinking." I show him, he's like, "Wow, this is beautiful. No one's really done travel in this way." And I kind of thought of everything, again, that I would want if I'm traveling. The 2 straps, the duffel bag, the boots. Now, keep in mind, I can make anything I want, but this is the consumer who can't, right?
So this package is a watch?
It's a watch with two straps.
With two straps and a duffel bag.
A duffel bag, a pair of boots.
Which are made to order.
Made to order, and a travel case for the watch.
And how much is it?
$16,900.
Okay.
For the kit.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I got to design the watch.
It's a manually wound.
It's a manual wind.
Yeah.
And I can give you all the specs. I want to say it's a 64-hour power reserve. The time has been amazing until I dropped it.
And the rose gold movement.
Rose gold
or at least
movement.
base plate.
Yeah. And I can give you how many jewels are inside and the whole thing.
Yeah.
They've never done, it's an in-house movement from part of the Patria collection. It's an in-house movement, and they've never done it in stainless. I wanted something more durable. I don't really wear gold. I think it's, for what I do here at the shop, it's a little too precious.
Sure.
The gold version, I believe, is like $22,000. And I got to design it. Now, I designed it from existing components because they said if you want to design it soup to nuts, you're looking at 2 years. I'm like, yeah, I can't wait. Let's get this thing going. And I'm just super excited. I mean, it's been cool. Raw Report did a feature on it. Hodinkee Magazine did a feature on it. Esquire, Forbes. I mean, it's been really cool.
That's amazing.
I'm like blown away that. But again, I go back. You know what I said about Anna? She changed my mind. She changed my life. This wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have had that education that Anna put me through, and Vogue and everybody there, and the support from the CFDA.
Sure. Yeah.
It would never happen. You have to. I don't believe in, there are the prodigies and there are the geniuses that can come up with amazing ideas, but you can't just be like, oh, this is how a collection works, and how does it all, and how do you tell the story, and what's the branding behind it, what's the marketing behind it, and what's the credibility behind it. You know, so many brands right now are on like super steroids. Mm-hmm. And they go through the roof and then they disappear. And I was like, that's not what I want.
Right.
Now,
right.
And I'm not saying I want my kids to take over my business, but I also am a realist in understanding that luxury takes a long time.
Sure.
I mean, Tutima's been around since 1928, and you haven't heard of them. A lot of people haven't heard of them. You know, you've heard of them, but you don't really know who they are.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's one of those things where, like, I feel like I heard the name.
You've seen it in all the magazines.
I recognize the font.
Yeah.
But, like, I just don't know the brand.
They're not
like,
everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And that goes, they're almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things like that.
Yeah, of course.
That haven't, and I think that's where, for me as a creative director of my brand, that I have to be a realist, right?
Right.
I can't look at what this brand is doing and, oh my gosh, they're in 150 doors or whatever it is. Or it's not, you have your own brand. You got to look at what you're doing, put your blinders on and say, this is who we are today. And that's kind of all you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George, I think that's a great place to stop. I think, thank you for that education.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, and if anybody wants any info, they can just reach out via email or the watch is on the site. They just send us the questions. We're glad to help anybody.
This was awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you. I had
Great
a blast.
to finally meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
All right, thanks, George. This wraps up this episode of the Standard H podcast. If you like what you heard, I'd love it if you'd share it with a friend or two. And if you have a moment, please rate and review the show as it helps others discover these episodes. It absolutely helps far more than you realize. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track, as well as Clear Audio for the noise canceling headphones. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.